1932, John Stevenson founded the New York and Harlem 4th Avenue line. This was the first streetcar in the world. And the train that goes from Port Jervis to Hoboken can trace its roots to this line. So this was going out throughout the world, you know, the horses. Finland, Germany, London, England, America. So I don't know if this photo was from New York, Alabama, or Washington, but no matter what, this is the most important piece of equipment, the horse. These horses were well-trained animals. They were like police and fire horses. The next important thing was, excuse me, it was either this or this, and then these guys. They were last. So no matter what, if you were in New York or Alabama or Washington or Helsinki or London, that's the front of the horse, and that's the back of the horse. I think we know where I'm going with that. Oops. So depending on the size of the horse, they can eat 30 to 50 pounds of food a day and drink 5 to 7 gallons of water. 2/3 of this was waste. At its peak, the city of Boston had 200,000 horses on the streets in one day. So there had to be a better way. And there was. This is the first electric streetcar ever. May 16, 1881, running in a suburb of Berlin, Germany. So the next few photos of one of the gentlemen on the historical side, the president, he's an electrical engineer, so he drew these up for me. So this is the first car, and the power came through the tracks. Late in 1881, the Russians were developing this in St. Petersburg. Overhead wire system with a pole, with a T-handle. And then the Germans and the Russians, they're always fighting over something, so the Germans came up with this, what we call the trolley, what we think of the trolley. But it still wasn't perfected. Meanwhile, in America, I can't pronounce this gentleman's name, Van der Poel. He came up with this spring to keep more tension, which was almost the way to go until 1888, and Dr. Frank Sprague invented this contraption up here to really keep the pressure on the pole. So these are the two systems. And I really can't find the correct analogy, but I think the Van der Poel system would be like if you had a standard transmission in your car, and the spray would be automatic. It's not really the best, but there's nothing wrong with a standard transmission, but an automatic is just, much more convenient and better. Okay. So the first electric trolley line in America was built in '84 in Cleveland, Ohio, and it quickly failed. That was with the Van der Poel system. The first successful line was in Richmond, Virginia in 1888, and that was with the Sprague system. And the trolleys were widespread throughout the Midwest, upper Midwest, through the Great Lakes region, into New York and New England, then down into DC and Baltimore. The greatest concentration of lines was in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa, the Rust Belt. In the South, lines became sparse and still used animal power for the 20th century, but larger communities had electric trolleys. The further west you went in the country, the lines were only found in the major cities. And by the 1890s, many smaller cities in the Midwest and East began having electric trolley service. Middletown, Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, Kingston. So by then, if your small town in the 1890s didn't have an electric rail system, you were like a bunch of two-bit hicks. By the 1920s, if you still had an electric system, you were known as a tunerable. They didn't last long, but they were very important. Chicago had 27 trolley and interurban lines serving the city and suburbs. Indianapolis was also a major trolley center. The state of Ohio had the most miles of trolley interurban tracks. Closer to home, in early 1900, Syracuse had 7 lines. One went to Rochester, another to Utica. Using different systems, you could drive trolley cars from New York to Illinois almost 1,000 miles. People would do this. When I was doing this research, there'd be these clubs. All right, we'll meet in Walden, then we'll go to Newburgh, and then we'll take a ferry to go to Beacon, and then we'll go to Poughkeepsie, and then we'll go to, and it was like a thing to do back then. So in 1910, a gentleman rode trolleys from Chicago to Albany, then a steamship to New York City, and then to Boston by trolley. In 1911, another gentleman rode trolleys from New York to Portland, Maine, arriving 25 hours later. By 1917, every state had a trolley system, and there was almost 18,000 miles of track in the USA. So steam railroads connected America. The electric railways and the trolleys and the interurbans, they filled it in. So during the week, these things are making money hands over fist because people had to go to work. They didn't just carry passengers, they also carried freight. But then on the weekends, things died down. So around this time, people started, getting a little bit of change in their pockets. So the trolley companies saying, "Oh, how can we get the suckers to ride our lines in the weekend to make more money?" And this is what they can do. Zoos, amusement parks. Amusement parks are the biggest. Vaudeville houses, bowling alleys, skating rinks, dance halls, racetracks. Bigger cities would have boxing matches, baseball games. Cars could be rented for funerals and to visit cemeteries. We think that's morbid, but how would you get there? Wedding parties and scenic locations along the lines were also popular. Masons, Oddfellows, Moose, Elk, and other civic organizations were given discount rates. They'd have publicity stunts like this, too, to get people to ride. Who won? 97 miles an hour.
Oh.
That was in Ohio, so you can see how flat it is. I don't know if everybody's ever traveled out in those godforsaken states out there, but it was flat. Now this is in Southern California. I don't know, this is out in Riverside, this is out in the high desert, and they used to film silent movies there. I don't know if this is a stunt from a silent movie or a real deal, but this was everywhere. Like we have car crashes now, trolley crashes back then were unbelievable. So with any new technology, urban myths began with electric cars. Among them were, if you stare at the sparks coming off the trolley wire, you go blind. Men would enter the trolleys first so they could absorb the electric magnetic current so ladies wouldn't be exposed to them because these are Victorian times. And there was a fear that watches would stop working if you wore them during an extended trolley line. So now we'll get ready with we'll start into Orange County, brief history of the Orange County systems. Now it's hard to see, but this is the map from 1903. The atlas. There's a lot of transportation going on, improvements going on in Orange County at this time. First, because I belong to the O&W Society, the O&W is double tracking their line from Cornwall through New Windsor, into Hamptonburg, Middletown, out to Wallkill, all the way up to Kenosha, so they can get to the coal fields in Scranton, the Scranton area. The Erie Railroad is now contemplating their Graham line, which is the commuter line that we know today. The state of New York, now this is hard to see. I'm going to use Newburgh, even though we're not talking about Newburgh. Here's Newburgh, here's Montgomery. You see how the line 17K Shepton Turnpike, that's blue. But once you get past Montgomery into Belleville, it's not. On these maps, if the line is blue, that means the state is taking over the road. So 52, that's not blue, that's still a private road. A lot of these roads are private. Now the state is getting an incredible amount of pressure from this newfangled form of transportation. Like your roads are terrible and we can't get around. Anybody want to guess what kind of transportation that is? It's not what you think. Bicycles. Bicycle clubs are the reasons why the roads are better. cheap. A horse was, we saw what a horse, you had to clean up for a horse. A horse cost money, you had to feed it, you had to fight, off you go. So, the first electric system in the county was Middletown. They built from Middletown and then Goshen, they met by Midway Park. But they were not the first to have street service in Orange County. Newburgh. Newburgh had horses from the ferry. For those of you that are familiar with Newburgh, out to where the Dunkin' Donuts and the Rite Aid is by Wisner Avenue, that was the trolley line, the horse-drawn line. Then in 1894, so in May 8th, 1894, Middletown opened up. June 8th, 94, Newburgh opened up their electric line. Then Newburgh ran it to Orange Lake in 94, and then by 95 they made it to Walden. The Port Jervis line, they opened in 1898, and they closed in 1924. They all closed around the same time. Oops, I went crazy. But anyway, Port Jervis line is a true trolley line because it only served the city of Port Jervis. Middletown and Newburgh, they're interurbans because they connected. So in the meantime, I went a little too far ahead of myself, but from like 1905 to 1912 was the golden era for the trolleys. Not so much the Port Jervis one. The Port Jervis one was so bad, the day they shut down, nobody knew, including the employees that just showed up and police pulled down, rebuilt. The Middletown line, they had a lot of financial trouble. They opened in 94, by 05 they changed hands 3 times. The Newburgh line was the most successful until 1912, and they had a massive fire at their headquarters. But their success was thrown overboard by their lack of safety. Their safety record was terrible, and their labor management was just as bad. So all this is going on, and now in 1903 also, it's hard to see, Newburgh built this little strip here. It went down Broadway, 17K, 32, to the New Windsor line, to the Machado's Lake, where the apartments are now. There was an ice pond there and a bleachery. And that completely threw these guys out of the tizzy. Because this was going to be another trolley line. I went a little ahead of myself, but there was going to be a fourth line. They were going to go from Goshen, roughly run along the Erie, into Chester, through the Black Dirt, and then get to Washingtonville. And then in Salisbury Mills, they just stopped. That's where if you look closely on the map, if you get a chance, it says proposed Intervale Traction Company, and it just stopped. And the reason they stopped was they couldn't figure if they wanted to go into Cornwall or Newburgh. But when Newburgh built this little spur here, they're like, well, let's just go up from Vale's Gate to Newburgh. And by the time they figured it out, they ran out of money and they didn't do anything. Now, a couple other things that they did do that I just found recently is they had a proposal, this would have made much more sense, to go small, start in Walden and then go to Montgomery. Then there was another talk of going from Walden out to Pine Bush. None of this happened. None of this happened. But this is to show how popular these things were. And again, that's how they went down. Again, the state wanted this done. The state wanted these roads improved, and of course, like now, they didn't want to spend the money to improve the roads. So one of the things they wanted was grade crossings eliminated with these railroads. So this is all speculation on my part, and a couple guys in the society. Okay. This, on the bottom left, is the oldest. This is Rock Haven. That's 207. Everybody remember this bridge? When I worked for the DOT, it was taken out in 77, 78. And I could figure out even back then, boy, the road must have gone this way, but I didn't know this bridge was here. So 207 never connected. If you're out in Rock Haven, it isn't the OW show, so I can't elaborate, but there's no way you're going to get a trolley over that. Over here, this is in Salisbury Mills. The viaduct is over here, 94 is over here, and the train station is over here. So this was the original road for 94. This is still there. Metro North stores their equipment over there. And this monstrosity was built in first by the O&W, and there's no way you're going to get a trolley through that. The trolley companies and the railroads didn't care for each other, especially the railroads, because the trolleys ran more frequently, their fares were cheaper. But if they can make money off of them, which the O&W did, they were great. And we'll see that as we get going. Okay. So May 8th, 1894, they started out as the Middletown Goshen Traction Company. In August of 94, the line went to the Walkill. At the same time, another company completed almost a mile of track from North Street to the city line. They were going to go out to Bloomingburg. That failed. So they tore up those tracks and they put them as a spur to go to the Orange County Fairgrounds. And then on November 25th, 1895, the line crossed the Walkill and into Goshen. So in Middletown, you couldn't at first, until 1905, you could get on the train, on the trolley, by the State Hospital on Hagen Avenue and ride all the way to Goshen. But in 1906, they stopped that. You have to go into the center of town, disembark, and then get on another trolley to go into Goshen. Newburgh, you could take a trolley from Newburgh to the city. You could take a trolley from Newburgh to Orange Lake, or you could take a trolley directly to Walden. So we'll see all this here. Again, like I said, they never really did financially that well. World War I was about it. That was the end of the trolley systems here in Orange County. Cars just became more popular. They were just didn't last. So on April 24th, the Middletown line ended, leaving only on to Goshen, and then finally it was all shut down. Now, the funny thing about it is, when the line was first built, Goshen, the merchants in Goshen did not want this done because they're afraid everybody's going to just get on the trolley and go to Middletown to go shopping. When the trolley shut down, people in Goshen wanted it kept running, and the Middletown people couldn't wait to get rid of it. Which was the same in Newburgh, because the Newburgh people couldn't wait to get rid of it, but the people in Walden wanted to keep it. So these are the main routes. And down on the bottom, this is what killed most trolley companies, the fares. They just couldn't keep the fares up with the main, with the times. So this is a map of all the trains that came into Middletown, including trolley. And this is a map of the route. One of the guys in the society, Alan, helped make this for me. A little bit closer view. About 5 or 6 years ago, this bed was up for sale, up for auction on eBay. And when it got to 300, I kind of said, that's enough for me. Don't talk to the motorman. Here's the schedules, kind of hard to read. When there are cars coming into town to be made. Old Home Week. I have a lot of pictures of Old Home Week. It's a big civic thing 120 years ago. So back here is the Colonial Diner back in there. This house still stands. And the trucks, we'll see on the other end of town, it's not as easy to see. The tracks just end in the street because it's not a train, it doesn't have to be turned around. Another one of the cars, I have no idea what that is. Academy Trolley Avenue, car number 40. Don't know where that location is either. Probably, well, now I've seen the back, it might be North Street. So during this, everybody, we have this romantic feeling, oh, the trolleys, they were wonderful, and they were, but they had a lot of problems. Number one was snow. Number two was lightning storms. And because, let me dig up to first of our props. That's a piece of trolley track from Walden. Wow. I don't know if everybody can see it, but it's not shaped like a railroad track at all. So these things, in the summer, they get hot and they expand, and you could have a wreck. In the winter, they shrink, and you could have a wreck. Okay, so now we're going to get it started. So we're going to start in Monhagen and come to Goshen. Another view. One of the guys in the society used to live in this house when he was a kid. He said in the late 60s, early 70s. Okay, so this is a good way to see. See how the track's just end. So he just gets out, flips the pole, and off they go. And you can also see the horse exhaust in the street. And it was everywhere. It was just disgusting, you know. It was people. Yeah. Everybody remember the trolley bridge in Middletown? Oh man, that was something. There's a trolley car going over it in 1897, right over there. That view's into Middletown. That's the view today. The early 60s. I remember that bridge. I used to date a girl years ago that lived there. I couldn't believe that thing. And now I wish they kept it. The only thing they kept was the builder's plate up here. I thought they were gonna, I wasn't even into trains back then, but I thought I remember reading in the paper they wanted to move it to Fancher David Park there, Fancher Park, whatever it is. That's all they saved. Wickham Avenue. Snow. It took me a long time to figure out where this was, and I didn't even figure it out. I posted this on Facebook, and of course it had to lead to an argument because there's so many experts. And this guy said, no, I lived in that house, that's where it is. And sure enough, he was right. So these are the passing sidings. They call them turnouts too. When we get to up by Mechanicstown, you see it a little bit better. Wickham and Highland. '09 blizzard. And this is Mr. Still. Still and Ketchum. They were photographers in Middletown. They had a big place on North Street. $0.18 a gallon. I looked it up. I think it's like $3.60 in today's money. It's less than a check. Another view. So the trolley's out of business now, but the tracks are still in place. So So this is where their original barn was. It was behind the O&W. And there's still some tracks behind the O&W AV station. And just got this one. Couldn't lighten it up enough, but there's a trolley car over there. Hello. So the O&W building and property is here, and the trolley would have went back here. That's where the original barn was, back here. More tracks. Now the entire time the trolley was in business, both here and when they moved out to where the mechanics town, the O&W supplied them with coal. So again, they didn't like it, but we made money off of them, so they're okay. This is the original Erie station. And there it is today. They did a wonderful job. And this is the city loop. You know, when they before the trolley officially opened on May 7th, 1894, the dignitaries had to go for that. The mayor, the aldermen, the owners of the company, blah, blah, blah. And it was a grand time until a horse and a wagon ran out in front of the trolley. Big accident. Nobody got hurt. Kind of ruined the atmosphere. Another view. James Street, urban renewal. Not as bad as Newburgh, but it was bad enough. So this, when Canal Street was widened, this building was taken down. And this is the building that's seen here, back over here. Where the empty lot is, was Buck Brothers. This is supposedly the first car of Middletown. These two guys here. And today, back here, is where the O&W Society has our archives, back in here. And the trolley stopped here every morning. You can see the tracks. Bring milk to the condensery. The employees dressed up for Old Home Week. This is a big deal, it's Old Home Week. More snow. And this building was torn down when the street was wide, the flat one on the corner here. Another view, looking the opposite way. The circus parade, these were huge too, the circus parades. Especially in Maybrook, people would come from all over just to watch the animals get loose in Maybrook when I would feed them by the rail yard. And there's, you can see in the other, in this Ketchum. So right about where the streetcar is, a few years ago, they were digging up the street, and I stopped and had to introduce myself, and the guy was like, I hate these trolley tracks, they're slowing me down, I'm losing money. I said, thank you. You could see where they dug it all up. Wherever they dug, there were trolley tracks. Not much difference. I just got this card. Unfortunately, a lot of these they're just so old, the pictures, no matter what I try to do, you can't clean them up. So this is probably one of the cars that goes to Goshen, big ones. Fireman's Parade, that was another big deal, as they still are. East Main Street. View is north. Now right here, Charles Ketchum. Charles Ketchum, a little subliminal advertising for Mr. Ketchum. Jacob Rubin, he was the big photographer in Newburgh, so in my Newburgh presentation, a lot of my photographs and postcards are from Mr. Rubin. North Street. Day and night views in North Street. Same card, I just colored it. So we're going out North Street, and right here, we'll get a closer view in a couple of slides of the dangerous crossing. This was really something here. So that's to keep the trolley pole on the wire as they're crossing the tracks. This is incredibly dangerous. The motorman would have to stop, the conductor would have to get off, but the train had priority all times. So it's a slow process getting across the tracks here. W store. Another view of North Street looking south. North of Portland. There's hardly nothing here to remind you of today's shot. It's all practically gone. Now this one I just got, and the guys in the society found this. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. It's the O&W yards, and look at the Dodge coal machines and all the coal. And they said, well, you got to look closely in the back. The trolley car. So this building is still standing. This one and this one are gone. I was going to go over here, but it's hard because they were obviously in the O&W yard, one of the buildings shooting down. And it's really hard to get a shot now. So now we're going to come back into town and then go out towards Midway Park and Goshen. Okay. Story. This is, I'm sure everybody's been on this street. It's quite a grade going up. Well, during an ice storm, one of the motormen was going up the grade and he lost complete control, no traction. And he threw down sand, still no traction. And as we saw earlier, these cars, they line up. So he's full power going forward and they're still going backwards. And they did crash, but nobody got seriously hurt. And the city of Middletown gave him an award for, saving the lives of people because he could have just bailed out. That's that. So that was their good part. Now, I'm going to take a minute here to read something that I should have earlier, but from the spectacles. Charles Tucker and Martin Stillwell, conductors on the Middletown Trolley Road, were arrested Wednesday night for violating the city ordinance by running trolley cars with flat wheels. Many complaints have been made to the police of late against the noise made by the flat-wheeled cars, and the officials of the traction company have been notified to take them out of service. No attention was given to the matter, and Chief Breckenhoff decided to enforce the ordinance. They were both fined $3 each. This was in like 1905. That's quite a bit of money in 1905. Now, another thing that they did, I was telling Bill beforehand, this is in 1906. A tie-up of the entire system of the Wallkill Transit Company operating the trolley cars in this city in Middletown was threatened yesterday afternoon when the superintendent and 6 motormen were arrested for violating the speed limit. The police have been very active in arresting automobile owners for speeding, and they kicked, that must be some 1905 slang, because the trolley company was violating the law with immunity. Yesterday afternoon, policemen armed with stopwatches rode on the cars. The first man arrested was Superintendent William Martin, who was temporarily relieving a motorman. The car was running 25 miles an hour. The arrest of 6 other motormen quickly followed. All were running between 16 and 25 miles an hour. Not wishing to block the road, Recorder Corwin released all in custody of their attorneys, saying their trial for Monday. The legal speed limit was 12 miles an hour. Now, as I mentioned, this Mr. Martin has some piece of work. He was the superintendent here in June of '06. In June of 1911, he is now employed in Newburgh as their superintendent of their trolley. Well, Mr. Martin got into an altercation with one of the workers and punched his lights out. Mr. Martin gets arrested, thrown in jail, and the men think, boy, this is great, until the next day when they showed up at work. And not only is Mr. Martin still employed, but he's been given a promotion, which did not sit well with the company employees. And as I was saying earlier, Newburgh always had an awful, awful safety and labor management record. Well, because of this, I live about a mile from Orange Lake, and in June of 1911, because of this strike and having unqualified people work, there was a head-on collision. 2 brothers who were working, the McLaughlins, some Irish guys, I forget their last names, but anyway, one was killed, one was seriously injured, and 6 of their passengers were seriously hurt. So this Mr. Martin was some piece of change. Back to the show. Now, as we just saw on North Street, how difficult it was for the trolley to cross. Imagine trying to cross on East Main Street, where there's the O&W, the Erie, the Middletown, and New Jersey. You got like 6 or 7 tracks. So what they did, they would go down Academy, down to Benton, and then Sprague, and then come up, and then go back, which we'll take a look at. But on the way down Benton, another story to tell, people didn't want the trolley to come by. 3 houses said, you're not putting these tracks in front of our house. No way. And their 2 excuses were, 1, you're going to stop at Midway Park and there's going to be all these drunks on board, and we don't want these drunks on, which was a lie because alcoholism was bad back then. And when you went to these amusement parks, it was a family out and they didn't stand for that. So that was some shaky ground. The second was, well, we're so close to this school, these poor children are going to get hit by a car. And the city of Middletown said, no, we want the trolley to bring the kids to school. So they were still having it on. And there was a section, maybe 15, 20 feet of track that was not finished. So what the trolley company did, they had one of their best motormen come up to where the tracks ended. And they somehow got a team of horses to hold back and lift the wheels. So the guy eased the car over, and he got the wheels on the other end of the track, and they somehow got the trolley to go over and then they took off. So people said, well, if they're going to do that, that's even worse than having these cars go by. So they finally relented. So here we are in Sprague. This is an Erie wreck train. And there's Railroad Avenue, and you can see a trolley coming up Railroad to go back out East Main, so that's where Boffa's was and all that. But all these, I don't know, incredibly dangerous trying to cross the trolley over all those tracks. This is from a few years ago. When I do my volunteer work at the society, the guy that helps me out, he goes, which way do you come in? Which way do you come in? I go, 84. He goes, which way are you going home? I go, oh, what's the difference? He goes, go out East Main Street, you're not going to leave. And he was right. So this is another thing that put the trolley companies out of business. See how there's the brick? They had to maintain a right-of-way of brick here. Meanwhile, the streets are dirt. So in the meantime, you know, when cars are starting to become popular, what would you rather drive Tin Lizzy on? A mud hole on this nice paved right-of-way, where you're not supposed to be. A lot of accidents. And they had to maintain that. That was another cost that the trolley company had up there. Closer view. I couldn't find, I think these houses were torn down. There's a vacant lot, I forget the side street there, but there's a big vacant lot, and it looks like it was there. A couple more views of the line. And this is the track that they tore up that was going to go from Middletown out to Lunenburg. And they put the spur in. And somewhere in here, all these electric cars directly to the fairgrounds. Newburgh, the same thing, electric cars to the fairgrounds. The big cemetery outside of Walden, electric cars to the cemetery. Okay, a little more reading here. This was an ice pond back in here, right here. So in 1906, two young women thrown into the water. Plunging from the track as it rounded the curve at the ice pond, a trolley car bound for the city landed in the pond yesterday. Of the 12 passengers, Miss Belle Dusenberry, bookkeeper in a newspaper office, and Miss Ruth Forley, operated the telephone office, were thrown into the water. They made their way back to shore, suffering only shock and drenching. Phillips, the motorman, landed partially under the car but escaped injury. The accident is believed to have been caused by a washout. So, both the O&W and the trolley would get ice here and sell it or deliver it. How many of you knew that that was the trolley buildings? And the church behind it, that was the trolley building too. This was the repair shop. And in the back was the car barn, and this was the powerhouse. From 1912, till they went out of business. This one is probably a sweeper, this car over here. And they can do all kinds of things with these cars. I don't have it in this show, but in the Newburgh one. They're like the little skid steer loaders. You can put almost anything on these. They have sprayers, sickle bars for mowing, plows, sweepers, all kinds of stuff. Another old home view, and you can see that the building isn't built yet. It was like 1905, I think. The bottom right is definitely 1905. And this was the coal dump. And the O&W would just dump the coal there. Bridge. Does anybody remember this bridge? I don't. I wasn't around then. Went over East Main Street. From what I read, it was only one lane, and when 17 was built, it wasn't the DOT then, it was the DPW. They didn't put a sign up for the exit because the traffic would back up so much, because that was only a one-lane bridge. I think they had taken it out to like the mid-60s. So the trolley barn and the coal facility are over here. So this is the inside. There's the dynamos and the furnace. And on October 21st, from neglect and lack of maintenance, the powerhouse broke down, and that was that. All over. Almost 98 years. Here's the equipment. So these are the stops once we get out of town. So the first one will be, this is by El Bandito. This is behind Brayside. Is that the name of the camp? Brayside? By the golf course. And then Midway Park. So this is the ravine. That's what it was called back then. Just behind me is East Main Street. That's Masonic Creek. So as you come down the hill, and they built that new senior complex there, just on this side of the stream where the guide rail is, that's where the trolley left street running, and this is a private right-of-way all the way into Goshen. So these guys are going to they're going to Goshen to the horse race. You'll see it on a closer view. So the creek is on the right, and how they would pass each other. I'm driving this car, and Bill's driving that one. So I'm going to Middletown. So whoever got there first, you're driving along, you got your hand on the throttle. As you come to the switch, and you see nobody is already there, you release the throttle, and because there's no electricity, you threw the switch open, and you coasted into the spot and waited. And Bill would come by, he'd fly by, switch it open, and you could take off, hopefully. Now, it's not dark enough, but you can see Goshen is on horse races on the front. So East Main Street is just up over here. And that was a footbridge, which we'll see in a second, right there. And this, one of these buildings, somebody said it was an ice cream factory. That's what they call it, the ravine. And there was the still again, you can see his name on the tracks. And surprisingly, for 95 years, it's still kind of open in spots. And right behind me is 84. That's 84 too. So as it comes, where I'm standing, it starts to curve like that. Now, I just got another, when I first bought this photo on the top, it said, last run to Goshen. I was like, wow. And I got these little books, I can't even pronounce the gentleman's name, Felix Reifenschneider, and he was like a big trolley guy from the 30s and 40s. And he said, that was from the 20s. I got another book, and they said, that's the early 1900s, so I have no idea when it is. But that's where the car came out. Right here. All right. If we can we take a quick minute break so that I can have a drink of water and maybe answer a couple of questions if we have any. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Just there's a book that was written in, I think, 1903, set in Chicago, and it's called The Jungle. It's about the meatpacking industry.
Yeah.
And the characters take these, what they call horse carts, which I think are like a trolley, but it's pulled by a horse on rails. And when did they start using, when did rails start to become, when did rails come into what had been basically dirt streets?
1860 supposedly in New York City was the first rail in the street.
1860.
Yes,
Why
sir.
is the rail so heavy? Because it's much heavier than a
Because
train.
it's buried, because it's in the street, and it's got to have stability, so it's buried.
So there's no ties.
There's no
There
ties.
are ties, but they're not like, you have to really look at I should have a section of railroad track, picture railroad track versus trolley, and you can see the difference. Because these run in the street, when the train, they just, they're above the shifting, plus, you don't want to drive over, it's got to be somewhat smooth for the cross traffic, the cars or the wagons back then, they don't want to go over the hump. So that's why it's that little rise there.
And there's still some, in Goshen, there's still some tracks that are visible. If you go out West Main to that, I forget the name of the street, but the one that has some trailers, trailer homes, mobile homes,
Yeah.
right at that intersection, if you look down, you'll see some trolley tracks sticking out.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Too quick. Were these things heated at all?
Some were, some weren't. I was just looking again on it's Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul. They have a vast thing on YouTube, and the guy said, "Why aren't these things heated with electricity?" They had coal, a coal stove, and the guy would have to go outside and stoke it. And the guy goes, "I don't get it. Why didn't they have electricity? Everything else was electric."
In the mid-'70s, I was in college in Dayton, Ohio, and they had just purchased this old electric bus system that had the poles,
Yeah.
the trolleys. It's the only place I've ever seen it
Yeah.
before. I rode them a few times, and every once in a while the pole would come off, and the guy'd have to go out with the big pole and try to get
Yeah.
back. Were they ever popular?
I don't know if they tried to replace the trolley system. I've seen pictures of trackless trolleys, I think they call them. I don't know how it could work. Yes, sir.
I noticed that Monroe and Warwick were not connected at all to the trolley system.
Oh, no.
Could you comment on that? Is that significant, or what was going on there?
Money. I found another article where this guy, in like 1902, I had a dream. It was a dream, boy, because he's going to go from Warwick to Greenwood Lake on a trolley. I don't know if you've ever gone over Mount Peter. Trolleys could definitely hit a grade better than a train. And if I'm ever invited back to do the Newburgh show, I can show a couple examples right by my house where they rerouted 52. And just that little bit of rerouting, there's a hill that even a trolley car could have made on. But cars could, and it was less curvy and weavy.
Is it maybe because we were at that time isolated and not really
Yeah, that had something to do
going
with
to
it.
New York
too.
City?
That had a lot to do with it too. Definitely. Yes, ma'am.
Was the Orange Lake stop, is that where Lakeview Hills? There's a restaurant, an old restaurant there.
Lakeview.
Yes, same place.
Was that a trolley stop, do you know?
I'm trying to think.
Out by Orange Lake.
It's
It's
on
right
It's
there.
right on Orange
Orange
Lake, it's
Lake,
an old
yeah.
building. I feel like
I lived there, and I
it's
can't picture what we were talking about. Where's it near? Like, is it near the hotel? The motel?
place?
It's more in a residential.
Oh, no.
Right on the lake, though.
52 used to, where the traffic light is, you remember it used to be like that crazy five corners like in Vales Gate and the straight, that's how it went in. Odell Circle is an old South Bank Road, they were 52. So in like 1930, from the traffic light to the lake, that section of 52 was added. But to go back into the lake, no, it just went, like, a couple years ago when I started looking this up, these people were in the local paper, the Sentinel. Oh, it's bad enough we have these potholes in, I don't know, Del Circle and South Bank Road. Now we got these big pieces of metal sticking out of them. Metal. But it was before I started doing the trolley, and that's what it was. The trolley tracks popping out to the street too. So,
Ray,
yeah.
I'm having a hard time understanding square wheels.
Flat wheels.
Not square, flat.
Flat. They wouldn't change them out.
It was out of round.
It was out of round. So they go
It was
clunk,
going
clunk,
round,
clunk,
worn
clunk.
down.
Oh,
And then it would
Okay.
start bumping, drive people crazy.
that makes somewhat more sense.
Yeah.
The switching,
Yes.
did the try stop and somebody get out and do
In some places they did, yeah.
mechanically do the
Yeah,
switching?
some did. But mostly, I was watching on YouTube, and the guy finally explained, I could hardly hear him, but he said, they let go of the power, and then it would open, and then the other guy would come by, and they'd take off. All right.
Excuse me, when these switches were done, was there a break in each one of the tracks so that the other wheel could go
Yeah,
over?
yeah. It would open, it'd be like that, and then it'd open, and the guy would come in, and then he'd wait, and then the other guy would come by. But, all right. Where'd I put the remote?
All right, lock the doors.
Oh,
See your movement.
yeah, I am having a seat.
In your pocket? Your pocket, no?
Gotta be.
Phone.
You go ahead.
Ah.
They're frequent.
About that. That's it? Yeah.
I thought it was a bigger one. All right.
That's it.
All right, never mind the foolishness. Okay. Anyway. In the back, this was the main attraction, which we'll take a look at, besides the river. The flooding is nothing new. This is from 1902. In 1903, there was an even bigger flood. It was so bad that the O&W leased a locomotive for the power to the trolley company when they were behind on Low Avenue, so they could have limited power for the street service. It was so bad. Pretty impressive. So now the golf course, they store their equipment underneath the remains of the bridge. Lots of postcards of this bridge. This is a big deal. Aerial view of what's left of it.
I was told this morning that that's the 12th hole.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in order to get on the tee properly, you line up with the abutments on the base on the bridge.
Oh, wow. So this is a combination car. Open, it must have been a warm day in November for them to ride on that. Kids jumping off the bridge. And a lot of guys in the society gave me postcards, and I don't want to have them feel left out, so I put them all in one. And you can see how they're holding up too. And that's all that's left of the north abutment on the Goshen side. This Midway Park, this was a big deal. Not as big deal as Orange Lake in Newburgh, but this was a big deal.
When was it built, Midway Park?
1894, by the trolley company. The day the trolley company opened, they opened. The day the trolley company closed, they closed. Midway Road, this is all, 17 definitely changed the way to get into there. It's hard to read. It's nowhere near where the park is, but if it was near the park, nobody would be able to read it, so.
Where's that at, that sign?
It's between, you know where the hospital is?
Yeah.
Go over towards the bridge, it's right there, going towards the cemetery.
The 6.5 Station Road, a reference to a station on the trolley line?
Erie,
That's on the Erie.
that's for the Erie, yes. So there's another switch you can see. Okay. Young ladies from The Shining. And there's the waiting station. A lot of people. So as I was saying, like, they don't want to make money. As long as they make money off of the trolley company, yeah, we're in, so here we go. O&W had to get in on the act. That did the Middletown and Unionville. I couldn't find any Erie ones, though. I'm sure they were in on it. Okay. There's going to be a little bit of talking here. We have to realize it's not 2022, but 1906. So first of all, to sound like this sexist, women did not dress like this. They dress like this, as these guys can tell you what they're looking at. Now this young lady is Maggie Daly. She came to the park, supposedly. She's a plant. There's no doubt she's a plant. And she volunteers to go up in a balloon and jump out. Now, Professor Kelly, no relation, he's the regular guy. So he's the barker that's going to call in the suckers to come on and see this. So she's supposed to go up to 1,000 feet, but something happened. Perilous. She made up to 2,500 feet, jumped out, and landed safely. She is an overnight sensation. So she came back and made many more jumps. So in July of 04, she was, 07, excuse me, she's going to be married and do a jump. Well, the jump didn't go too good because she landed in the river. They saved her, and then she got married at 4 p.m., and supposedly there were 18,000 people at the park that day.
When you say she jumped, Ray, what did she have?
A parachute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah, I should have added that.
A little bowl of water on the bottom.
Yeah, should have added.
That was that little word that was in there.
I forgot the parachute part. Here's their big deal, the gravity roller coaster. So in 04, the first one burned down, and then in 11, another one was built. Now, I skipped over this part too, with my introduction to how I found out about the trolley, the whole thing, but how I found out about Midway Park. I'm retired from DOT. When I was a kid, they used a lot of sand. This was a sandbank. Does everybody remember where Tetz is? That's where the park was. It was a sandbank. And there was a gentleman there that ran the front end loader. This loader, the bucket on the loader was as big as the DOT truck. That's how big this loader. And the guy that ran it was just as big. He looked like Jackie Gleason and Sheriff Buford T. Justice, the way he was from Georgia, and I couldn't understand a word he said, but he was a really nice guy. But he was huge. And I never saw him out of the loader. Never, ever, ever. Except for one time. I pull up, I guess he wasn't expecting me, and he couldn't get back in. taking too long. He goes, boy, y'all want to try this? 20 years old, 21. So I'm digging into the sand. This thing is like, I couldn't believe the power. Boom, dump it. Y'all know what you're digging into? I'm like, sand? There's an amusement park here, boy, and this is where the roller coaster was. And he's telling me the whole thing. And that's how I found out about an amusement park at Midway Park from this gentleman. So now, Owens Road. There was a stop here on Owens Road. Here's the power lines, and you can drive this side and this side are game clubs. But once you get here, I stop right here because there's posted signs, and I ended that little journey. So when the golf course closes down for the winter, I'm going to see if I can walk over their bridge and walk to here. See if there's anything to be found. Probably not, but. So then, once I got through Owens Road, we went through the swamp by Cheechunk. Right there. It's pretty easy to figure out. And it was quite rural, you know, it was like riding a train. And just on this side of Owens Road, the gentleman let me walk back in his yard. He took me on a tour. Because this was all farm at one time. This is a bridge for the animals to get from field to field. And they had a drainage for their culverts. See, the right-of-way is elevated here because it's pretty swampy. And then you got Cheechunk. Over here, there was a bridge. And for the longest time, I had to. I was like, I had to get in there. So I did, finally. So that's all that's left of the bridge that crossed over Cheechunk. And I met another explorer while I was out. The brush was incredible, and there was no way of going to this little 25-foot stop me to walk on this. And this is, well, we'll see in a second. But here, as you get closer to 17, it opened up. Now, one of these, I thought was, well, this one actually, I thought that was a tie, but it wasn't. And what I tripped over, let me dig this out. This was attached to a wire on what I thought was a cross tie. But what it is, it went like this on a pole. And the wire, it was like something to keep the pole standing up straight. So that's what that is. I almost killed myself tripping over it. And that's what I found somewhere here. So 17 covers the trolley tracks. Once you know where to look. You know where the pull-off is on Cheechunk? If you're coming back from Middletown, there's a pull-off, and if you're like real sneaky, you can pull off and then drive onto Cheechunk right there. That's where it came out. Right there. So now, going down from, is that Hampton Road or Hampton Road? Down along the shoulder, once the foliage is down, once you get by Burke, and you go out, look to your right along the shoulder, and you can see where the trolley goes. As it gets closer to Goshen, then it went underneath the road. So right here, that's where it crossed. 6.5 station. There's a gentleman that was an Erie stop. It was because it was 6.5 miles from Chester, Monroe, 6.5 from Monroe, and 6.5 to Middletown. I'm not an Erie person, but that's why it was 6.5 each way to whatever stops they had. And then there was another stop here. This is by the Red House there, Ryerson, by Golden Hill. And Golden Hill and Matthews, they all connected prior to 17 being built. Okay. So back here is the Erie, and this is on Spring Street. And I went to Burke, and I went to St. John. I used to play hockey back then. And all the little kids used to play in this pond, and all the big kids would play in this pond. But a budding NHL superstar was myself. I was playing on this pond. And I always wondered, what is this? What is this? Well, that's railroad tie, or trolley tie floating in the water. And that's what it was. That was the way the trolley came into town. That little causeway. So here's Golden Hill, and there's the ponds, and went between the ponds, Spring Street into town. Never knew that. (1922) panoramic map of Goshen. Down here's the trolley. First car into Goshen. And there were two stops on two waiting stations, excuse me, on each side of Grand Street. This guy and this is the Fred. And my friend Russ Nelson made this. And now for some shameless self-promotion. I helped write a chapter in this book, and my chapter was on the trolley. And there, $10, I have membership applications and some information here. If anybody's interested in what we just discussed, I can give you some handouts. And we have some sales lists, and this book also for sale, and it goes from this is Park One Goshen to Carter on the Wackel Valley Road. So we're all done. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Ray. We have a few minutes still for any
more
additional
questions?
Were any of the trolley cars like at any of the trolley car museums today, or what happened to them or the equipment?
I do know, this is how sleazy the Port Jervis line was. They went out last. They bought up Newberg's cars, a bunch of Newberg's cars, and they said, oh, look, we got these brand new cars. So they would just sell them to different places. I don't think of any of these cars are around. The smaller cars that we saw in the Newberg show, it's easier. And when I went to Kingston to the Trolley Museum to get some information, the really old cars, the open ones, he says they're really hard to find. So like they're just worn out. He goes, no, because the technology happened so quickly, farmers would buy these old open cars and they either put them on a wagon or just drag them out into their fields and throw hay into them and let the animals eat them. So a lot of them got ruined like that. A lot of them caught on fire. People, you know, back then people like, we can't wait to get rid of these things. They turn them into diners, homes. In the Midwest, because there were so many more of them, like motels, motor, not really motels, but the way they called it back then. All kinds of crazy things, but I don't think any of the middle towns in Newburgh or Port Jervis were around.
Where were they manufactured?
Mostly in Philadelphia at the Brill Company. There were other companies in St. Louis, and I can forget the other place, but most of the ones in the Northeast were from Philadelphia. Yes, sir.
The trolleys, do they use the same gauge as
Yes.
standard gauge?
Yes, 480. But that's why they also had that kind of track too, because in Syracuse, Hudson, other places, trains would run down the main streets, and there's no way that rail can support a train. So that's one reason too, they had the different route. They did not want trains running down the main streets. It's bad enough they had the trolley cars.
Ray, I noticed in the number of the trolley cars on the front, there was what I used to call a cow catcher that I saw on
Yeah.
railroads. I mean, is that really
Yeah.
what it was?
Yes, in early 1900s, they didn't have one, and a young boy in Middletown got killed, run over by a trolley car. Those would, instead of killing you, they just, fatally injure you. But it was better than being run over. It was, if anybody has the time, you really have nothing to do, just Google old newspapers and just put in trolley accidents, and it's unbelievable the wrecks they would have. Just like we have car crashes today, back then it was trolley crashes. Yes, sir.
Was there a powerhouse in Goshen itself?
I believe the one that is out on West Main Street now, it had to be. It had to be, because there's no way that limited power could go from Middletown to Goshen.
And was air pollution a problem as far as
They
this
didn't
power?
care about air
They didn't care
pollution,
about it?
just burn, coal, there was nothing. I don't have it with me, but a picture in Newburgh by my house of people on the trolley heading to Orange Lake. And this car, there's people on the roof, there's people hanging off the side. I mean, the cars might hold 30 people, there had to be 50, 60 people in this car. One car, just hanging on. There was no safety back then.
I was just in Germany and Hungary and lots of.
Oh, yeah?
Lots of trolleys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still use them there.
Very well used.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Okay,
Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it all.
thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
And again, if anybody wants one of these handouts, please feel free to take it. It's
Sorry.
what I read about the crash.
Sorry about that. I forgot.
Okay.